Hi. In this video today I want to discuss the zero-sum game and why I think that life is a zero-sum game and why everything that we're doing is escaping a greater negative to pursue or satisfy something which I would say is a lesser negative, but it's still a negative. And it's a negative because you need the deprivation or the pain to make the satisfaction or the exit or the elimination of that pain seem more satisfying. And I would say life is like a ball that you accidentally you kick, and then you accidentally, when you're running to get the ball, that when you grab down at it, when you're ready to grab the ball, you accidentally kick it again. I'm sure there's people that have done this before. I think everyone probably has an experience with this. You run for the ball, and then you kick it accidentally right when you're ready to pick it up. I think that's a good way of describing life. And life is like ball chasing, or whatever analogy or metaphor you want to put it to, or whatever object it is, balloons, balloon chasing, whatever it is you want to describe it as. You can put any word to it and any metaphor, I guess. And I would say that I guess another way to describe life is like two walls. This is the pain wall, the suffering, the deprivation wall, and this is the satisfaction wall. You need this wall for a foundation for this wall, otherwise this wall can't hold on to anything. This wall is the foundation. It's like one of the heads one of the heads on Easter Island. You need this head for this head to have any foundation. It's stuck in the ground. Who knows how far, and you need this foundation, the negative wall, for this foundation to make any sense. Otherwise, this foundation is flimsy. You can't have this without this wall of deprivation. And when you put those two together, that's life. You have the deprivation and you have the satisfaction. And you can't have the satisfaction without the deprivation. And I would say another way of putting it is like a pendulum. You know, the ones with the balls and the balls in between, and you swing it up, and it goes, depending on how high you swing it, it comes back high on this side, and sometimes you go up and down, and up and down, and up and down, and eventually it gets redundant. But the higher you pull the negative side up, which is, I say, when you lift it up, that's the negative side, the higher this side, the positive side, will go up, because the more deprived you are, the more likely the greater satisfaction you're going to have. The more hungry you are, the greater the satisfaction of eating the hunger. Or the more, the more in pain you are, the more likely you're going to be satisfied by getting out of that pain, the greater satisfaction. And I would say, it's going up and down, but then eventually it starts slowing down and it doesn't go as high, and it starts resting. And in a way, our satisfactions get redundant after a while. And when they get redundant, we're on to some other problem that we're trying to solve. Life is solving problems. It's like kicking the ball, then right when you're ready to grab it, you've got the solution, you create a new problem, and the solution is pretty much getting your foot to kick the ball again. It's never catching the ball, and if you do, it's throwing the ball again, then catching it, picking it up, or throwing it, and catching it, or throwing it, then going to pick it up, and you solve your problem, and you throw it again. And sort of like this, you're on to some new problem. You need to find some way to be able to lift it up high again, and then so it can go high on this side again. I guess that's a good analogy, and I think all those fit good enough to make the point. And I would say the satisfaction that we get doesn't matter when we're satisfied. How we reach it, how we reach our satisfaction doesn't matter. It's the satisfaction that matters more than anything. So once we're satisfied, it doesn't matter how we got satisfied. It just matters that we're satisfied. Sort of like, for example, say you're in the mood for a milkshake, and you don't have a milkshake, so you have to live with water. And it's all about you're thirsty, and that's why you want a milkshake. It doesn't really matter. But once you're thirsty, there's only two sides to the game we're playing in life. It's I'm unsatisfied or I'm satisfied. I'm deprived or satisfied, or I'm in pain or I'm not in pain. And whatever the problem may be, you can isolate it to whatever single problem, or just being generally in a bad state or in a good state. Let's say you're hungry or thirsty and you want a chocolate milkshake, but you have to live with water. You drink enough water so that you're not thirsty anymore, and then you're satisfied. You don't need the chocolate milkshake anymore. So once you've had the water and you've satisfied your hunger or your satisfaction or your deprivation, it doesn't matter now because you've satisfied the deprivation, and it only matters how you satisfy the deprivation when you're deprived. So you wanted the chocolate milkshake when you were deprived, but you didn't need it anymore once you were satisfied with what you have. So once you're satisfied, it doesn't really matter because you're already on to chasing some other problem that you need to satisfy. Say you're hungry, so even if you satisfy something, say that you do drink that water and you've satisfied your thirst, it doesn't mean you can't have something right after that. It doesn't mean that you're completely at zero. You always have something to chase next. You always have, oh, I'm hungry now, I want to satisfy my hunger. And that's all you're doing with this life that you're given. You're satisfying your wants and needs to survive, and that's really all we're doing, is trying to survive. Even though it's not necessarily what we're doing, what we're trying to do, it's what we're doing. We're trying to satisfy these satisfactions we have. And I suppose you can say subconsciously what we're doing is surviving. But we're, from our point of view, sort of like sex is for procreating, but from our point of view, our conscious point of view, it's to satisfy some deprivation. Sort of like eating. We're satisfying a deprivation, and that's all we're doing. So when in the end, it doesn't matter how you satisfy the hunger that you have, and it doesn't matter. It just matters that you're satisfied, and it doesn't matter how much you're satisfied. You're always looking onto a new problem. You're always chasing the ball. You're always picking up the ball and throwing it again. Because once you have the ball, what are you going to do with the ball? Or throwing the ball, and you throw it up in the air, and depending on how far up it goes, the bigger the problem is, the bigger the deprivation, the more likely that it's harder to catch the ball. But once you do, the greater it is the satisfaction in catching the ball. So it's a catching game, or a chasing game, or whatever you want to call it. It's chasing something. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing anything. Sort of like if you had nothing to do. It's the problem. Or even if you had nothing to chase, you'd be chasing your sanity because you didn't have anything deprived. You had the deprivation of not having a problem, and I think that can be a problem. Once you have no problems, or you're trying to find a problem, you're on to some other problem, and I think life's one constant problem that you're trying to solve, and you're trying to satisfy. So you're trying to satisfy solving a problem. You need a problem when you have no problems. When you have nothing, you only have a thinking problem where you're thinking about there's nothing to satisfy. There's always a problem that's going to be weighed on you and that you're going to need to satisfy. And the only satisfaction is usually solving some other problem or having some other problem fall upon you so that you have something to satisfy. And I think that's the big problem with life, is that you're constantly trying to satisfy with something and you're never reaching the zero. You're never reaching the peak. And if you do, you're ready to fall right back off. Otherwise, you're dead. I would argue that you're not zero unless you are dead. And since you're not conscious and you're not really there when you're dead, we never reach zero because there's no context of the zero-sum game anymore when you're dead. So even though it's zero for the sentient being, for you personally, you're not experiencing anything when you're zero, or when there is no you to experience a zero. So you're always chasing, and you're always going to be right below the ground, or right below the surface of the water, and you're never going to reach the top. You're going to constantly be fighting. You're just going to be fighting a little harder, or from a little further below the surface of the water. And I think you're going to constantly be deprived of something, and you're going to be constantly chasing the same thing over and over again, especially the redundant tasks like eating, libido. And like I said, the libido thing is, even though you satisfy something like libido, it's something that's made out of passion, and passion creates a deprivation. Because the only reason you have a passion is that this passion creates a great deprivation in you, and the satisfaction of trying to accomplish the goals that you're trying to accomplish. And I think that it's a good thing to recognize this, and you can still indulge in your fantasies. You just need to recognize the truth. And you don't need to. I'm just saying, if you want to bring it to a philosophical conversation, you're going to have to recognize the truth, or bring something that at least resembles the truth, or to be the truth, in a serious discussion when you're talking about the facts of this reality that we're living in. So I think whoever doesn't want to accept that life's a zero-sum game, even though it's something they experience, especially with the value thing and suffering, you can still indulge in your fantasies even if you acknowledge the truth. You can still eat you can drink the chocolate milkshake and still enjoy it. It's just that all we're saying is that it's something that you wanted. And when you're satisfied, say you substitute water for that, you don't want water, but you want the chocolate milkshake, but you have no choice but to drink the water. It's right there in front of you, and you would have to do more to achieve that chocolate milkshake. And almost in a way, you'd have to deprive yourself more and work harder for the chocolate milkshake. You can go through less dissatisfaction, and in the end, you're satisfied all the same because you satisfied the hunger. Sort of like you satisfied the hunger, which all you needed was to satisfy something. There's either I'm thirsty or I'm not thirsty. Once you're not thirsty, it doesn't matter. You don't want the chocolate milkshake anymore. So if you drink, say you drink water before you eat a meal and it fills you up, you don't need to eat anymore. At least not for the moment. So I would say that everything's a zero-sum game, and we're constantly chasing. And that's all we're doing. And we're addicted, and we're constantly chasing ambitions. Life is futile, and there's nothing that we're doing here except chasing and doing the same thing over and over again to survive long enough to die. And the longer that we survive, the more we're staying the death sentence that we're all given from birth. Birth leads to death, and that's what's going to happen to all of us. So I think the longer you stay alive, the more you're going to find that you're depriving yourself, and that's what existence brings no matter what. So I would say that, yes, life is a zero-sum game, and you need the negatives to create what we have illusions of as positives, and we're not doing anything but being addicted to these things that keeps us in the game so that we can survive long enough to die. And I guess that would sum up the argument for the zero-sum game, at least most of it, and if I have anything else to add, I can add it in a later video. But thank you for watching, and I hope that the zero-sum game doesn't bring you down any further. But thank you for watching, and have a nice day. Bye.